Welcome back, everyone, to Issues of Faith. We have with us Reverend Carol Cavan Dillion, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You're with Senior Pastor at West End United Methodist Church. As we went to break, we're talking about the divide in the Methodist Church right now. You wrote your thesis on this issue. What are other denominations being more successful at dealing with this? Or kind of when you studied this issue, when we're talking about gay and lesbian marriage and ordaining gay and lesbian clergy, how are other churches dealing with it, and what chance do you think the Methodist Church has to come together on this?
Unfortunately, I don't think we have a really good model. I think every denomination has struggled in its own way, and it's been kind of messy. I don't think there's a way through this that isn't messy and painful. My thesis was around the value of holy conversation, of one-on-one or in a small group listening to one another, which is in part what I think that commission that our bishops appointed was all about. That's where I've seen love and the Holy Spirit and connection in the midst of difference. It's when we get to voting, and this global gathering of the General Conference is a legislative body, and there's voting and there's lobbying and it's majority rule. And in this case, whatever the difference was, 70 some odd votes.
Right.
You have winners and losers, and nobody's happy, and I'm not sure where God is and all that.
So is it appropriate to even do that? Do you think it's been pushed off, and at some point you've got to have a up or down vote, or is that not what we need to be doing? What do you think about that?
I don't think it will ever be resolved in a holy way through voting, and I don't know what the alternative is. I felt like the process with that commission, setting aside our legislative process, was a beautiful step, and yet what they came up with was then sent back to the legislative process, the voting process, and here we are.
What can you learn from what other denominations have done? I know the Presbyterian Church, PCUSA, went through this and they allowed it, gay marriage. Did that come up in the debate? Like, they allowed it and they've had problems. Certainly many of these mainline denominations have seen a decrease in attendance. I don't know if that was brought up as a part of this debate or not. But is there anything that you feel like was used in the debate that came from what's happened with other churches?
Not really. I think the only other example I've heard talked about is the issues of property in the Episcopal Church, because the United Methodist system is similar in that the buildings and property are owned by the denomination, not by the individual congregations. So if a church wanted to split, it could lead to lawsuits, and I think some of that happened in the Episcopal Church. There are better ways to go about that, and that's part of what some of the petitions were about, was disaffiliation. How can we make a gracious exit? How can we bless one another if we need to part ways?
And so I guess in our final 3 minutes, that comes down to what it is. I guess the question now is, will churches that disagree stay and try and change things, or will they just say goodbye? And there are a lot of churches that are dealing with that, right? And when do you think they will have an answer? When do you think we'll start seeing a decision, a wave one way or another?
I think some already have left. I think some are waiting to see what the Judicial Council says in April, and then what happens in 2020 when we gather again as a global church. And if the current petitions and traditional plan stay as they are, then we might see churches, more centrist progressive churches, trying to find a way to separate.
And what is the percentage, do you know? Would that mean half the church would fall off, 25%? Do you have a sense?
I have no idea. And it's probably different regionally. like I said, the whole Western jurisdiction has said, we're not abiding by these petitions.
The Western jurisdiction is that California and
Oregon, Washington. I'm not sure exactly where the lines are.
And then all of Africa would be pretty united in the other way.
Right. The whole German Methodist Church has said we're not abiding by the traditional plan that came out of St. Louis. So, already there are groups and places and churches and conferences that are saying we're.
So we have a minute left. Someone comes up to you in your congregation and says, I am so upset by this and I don't know what to do. And I'm sure you've had people say that. What do you tell them?
I tell them for now, let's stick together in this. Let's work for change together. Let's keep praying and trusting God to do something surprising we haven't thought about. But let's work to get some delegates elected, to tell the story of West End and the transformation that we've seen in people's lives. And let's keep talking with one another and with other churches.
Well, this is a hard topic. Thank you for coming on and talking about it. West End United Methodist Church, Senior Pastor, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks to all of you for watching Issues of Faith. Have a great day, everybody.